This program was made possible by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
Yes. Brian Lord, CAA. Yeah. Nathan Lane. Lane. Did you see the birdcage? Brian, how are you? Did Scorsese call? No? How about Spielberg? I didn't think so. All right. I guess I have to stay in Venice.
Ah, Venice. Ah, Italy. Watching the city rise from the sea, I can understand why the city has inspired so many artists. Michelangelo, Da Vinci, the guy who invented latte. But seeing the paintings, reading the novels, or even watching the movies set in Venice can't prepare you for the real thing.
In the great words of Robert Benchley, streets full of water, please advise.
Once I arrived, I realized this was no Vegas theme hotel or a studio backlot. It's a real city with real people living their everyday lives. It's just like the New York I love, only the art's better, the buildings are older, the people speak Italian, and the main street is 14 feet underwater. It's called the Grand Canal.
Taxi! Taxi!
Located along the northeast shores of Italy in the Adriatic Sea, Venice's rich history and enduring mystique has captured the imagination of the world. Imagine coming from America, a country whose cultural memory begins with the birth of MTV, and finding yourself immersed in the charm of a city virtually unchanged since the 18th century, a period only familiar now to Bob Dole. The Grand Canal, or the Canalazzo, as it is known by native Venetians, is a 2.5-mile ribbon of water that runs through the heart of the city, uniting the 6 districts. This landscape was created by a unique combination of nature and necessity. Hundreds of years ago, this undeveloped marshland off the coast of Italy consisted of 118 separate islands surrounded by natural waterways. In the 6th century, as the Roman Empire collapsed, one toga party too many, foreign armies invaded the mainland. Forced to flee, refugees settled along the marshy banks of an estuary in northeast Italy. Surprisingly, the wood pilings of these early camps didn't rot, but instead petrified. Medieval real estate agents rejoiced, and a permanent settlement slowly grew. And soon that settlement had a name, Venezia. That's Italian for bring galoshes.
My kind of town, Venice is.
For nearly 200 years, most visitors come to Venice by the Causeway train. The Santa Lucia train station is the only modern building on the entire canal. It was built in 1955 and named for the church that once stood here, and has all the charm of the Department of Motor Vehicles.
This is a very old, beautiful church that they tore down to build this. This beauty. But then again, every street you go, there's a church. It's like Starbucks.
Another thing Venice has is canals. Lots and lots of canals. It has canals like New York has souvlaki stands. 177 to be exact. Better buy a map. That way I won't have to ask dumb questions and look like a tourist. This way I can stare blankly at my map until my eyes glaze over and look like a tourist.
Ciao.
And with
Ciao.
that, I'm off to see my very first landmark along the Grand Canal. The bridge of Scalzi is the first of only 3 bridges that span this 2.5-mile canalazzo. Built in 1934, this stone archway connects the San Croce and Canaraggio districts. It is one of the few places where pedestrians can actually walk along the banks of the Grand Canal. Since it's impossible to simply stroll the length of the canalazzo, I decided to forget the map and just point to things and grunt. As I relaxed and began to embrace my total helplessness, I noticed that the Grand Canal functions like any other main street, with one notable exception. You guessed it, boats. The canal is filled with every kind of boat imaginable. Almost everything that comes in or goes out of Venice travels by water, from luggage and laundry to building supplies and garbage. Amid the hustle of daily life, there is a reminder of the romantic past, that most eternal icon, that magnet for romantics, that classic newlywed photo op, the gondola.
Ciao.
Ciao,
Ciao.
my name is Luciano.
Nathan. Nathan, I would love, what a spectacular.
Yes, very nice.
Think he noticed I don't speak Italian? I barely speak English. Anyway, these ornately outfitted rowboats date back to the 11th century. They've been described as everything from a cradle to a coffin.
I can sit back here?
Yeah, there.
All right. Ooh, very nice. I feel like royalty.
In the mid-1700s, there were as many as 10,000 gondoliers working in the city. Today, there are only 405 licenses available for this highly regulated profession.
Look, instead of fuzzy dice, they have these. It's lovely.
Because my gondola is new boat.
It's new?
Yeah, I'm 3 years old only.
I know, it has that kind of new gondola smell.
Luciano explained that the decorations and appointments on his new gondola have evolved over time to include symbols of Venice. The front part is called the rosto, or in Venetian, ferro. It is carved with the Lion of St. Mark, and the 6 teeth of the comb are symbols for the 6 districts of the city of Venice.
Ah, look at this. Do you sing?
Hey,
Hey, this is the perfect spot. Listen to those acoustics.
my
Oh,
vocal is terrible.
sole mio.
But O Sole Mio song is a Napoli song. It's not Venetian.
It's not?
Here we have many nice songs, but people know the Sole Mio because it's famous, you know the word
Oh, of
for
course.
that.
What's the most famous Venetian song?
La biondina in
Let me translate.
gondoletta, l'altra
That's Row, Row, Row Till
sera
Daddy Takes the Gondola Away. It's a big hit back in the 50s.
Poveretta.
Okay, I picked the wrong tune. I should have used one of my lifelines. Thank God Luciano set me straight. And another thing, I flagged this gondola trying to pass myself off as a typical Venetian, only to discover that your typical Venetian considers riding the gondola a pastime for badly dressed, flashbulb-popping turistas Americanos.
Usually Venetian people don't take a gondola ride because it's too expensive systems. But they take only one time, for wedding.
Starting at 120,000 lira an hour, about $75, it's easy to understand why Venetians leave the gondolas to the suckers, beloved visitors to this fair city. When it comes to mass transit, most locals prefer the Vaporetto. At 6,000 lira, or $3, these water buses run along regular routes. Here's where visitors can really rub elbows with real Venetians, who, by the way, pay a lower locals-only fare. Knowing the lyrics to That's Amore will not qualify you as a local. But my favorite form of mass transit are the traghetti. These ferries combine the tradition of a gondola and the function of mass transit, schlepping passengers from one side of the Grand Canal to the other at 7 different locations. And what a bargain at 45 cents. Of course, the driver doesn't sing, but what the heck. But no matter what kind of boat you're on, the best view of Venice is definitely from the water.
That was exhausting. That was quite a trip.
You like it?
Oh, you handled that oar well. Thank you, Luciano. Arrivederci.
Arrivederci.
If you ever get to New York, I'll take you on the subway.
I see you in the States.
That's right.
The gondola ride inspired me. Here I am, a nice Irish kid from Jersey City, and now I have the chance to probe the Venice hidden from the typical tourist. Luciano suggested I visit a forcola shop. Just what is a forcola? I know, sounds like an Italian surgical instrument. Scalpel, suture, forcola. No, doctor, not the forcola. As it turns out, forcolas are the traditional oar supports for the rowboats of Venice. Just off the Grand Canal is the woodshop studio of Paolo Brandalisto. Paolo is one of only 3 remaining craftsmen who still produce forcolas.
Buongiorno. Do you mind if I look around? Grazie.
The oar support has pretty much gone the way of the 8-track tape player, but Paolo creates these handmade sculptures for the last few gondoliers who may need them, and for tourists who may want a unique souvenir of Venice.
Oh, Papa?
No, mio maestro.
Ah.
Più di 200 anni.
The wood shop I work in is more than 200 years old. It used to belong to the man who taught me, and before that, to his father. My teacher, my maestro, was called Giuseppe Cowley, and he was the only craftsman of his kind to keep on after the war. Because then everyone started using motorboats, and so there was no demand anymore. And from him I learned the craft involved in this profession. In order to make a forcola, the wood you have to use is walnut. It lasts longer, and it's the wood which has always been used traditionally.
Paolo, thank you very much for taking the time. And it's beautiful, beautiful work. And for carrying on the tradition.
Grazie.
Grazie.
Didn't understand a thing that guy said, but he does good work. After just one day in Venice, I'm stunned by the beauty. As I travel along the Grand Canal, I find myself trying to decide which palazzo I'd like to invade. The little one with a nice garden, or the really big one with the huge windows. Some of these buildings have soot older than our entire country. By the Middle Ages, Venice had emerged as a dominant military and commercial power, amassing enormous wealth. To live in a palazzo on the Grand Canal meant that your family had served the interest of the Venetian Republic. Stunning palaces were built, flaunting the riches of the empire, known as La Serenissima. Today, most of the palaces on the Grand Canal are used as offices or museums. However, there are the lucky handful who get to live in these magnificent mansions.
Hello? Pronto? Yes, Nathan Lane for Mr. Lovett.
Lawrence Lovett is one of the fortunate few, and I've been invited to see his view of the Grand Canal.
Mr. Lovett, thank you so much for having me here.
Nice of you to come.
As chairman of Venetian Heritage, Mr. Lovett raises funds to restore the art and architecture of the Venetian Republic.
This is unbelievably beautiful.
Thank you very much.
And with this particular palazzo, it's easy to understand his passion for preservation.
Is it?
And why he's so well preserved himself.
This is what God would have done if he'd had the money.
Well, that's what they ever said before. Most hot. Come out. It's a little bit glary out here, but, well, here we are on the Grand Canal.
Wow, this is something. Wow.
It's really a great view,
You know, the thing is, you can look at paintings from 400 years ago and see almost the exact...
You can see the Vaporetto stops now and more modern boats, but otherwise it looks just the same. Those of us who are in preservation work here are very proud of that fact.
Yes.
And then there will be no more changes either under the present laws.
Well, that's terrific. Now, do you start to take it all for granted at a certain point, how
Never.
gorgeous it is?
Never. Every time I walk out here, I'm taken anew by how beautiful all of Venice is.
And seeing new things all the time.
Every day, you see something new. And even if you go on the little small street in the back street, you find something beautiful to look at.
That's an understatement. The whole city is a visual banquet that connects today's Venice to its artistic past. Each period, from the Byzantine to the Gothic, Palladian to the Baroque, are shoulder to shoulder creating the pageantry of the Grand Canal. This Renaissance-style palazzo was completed in 1504 and was the home to Wagner, about whose music Mark Twain once said, "It's not as bad as it sounds." Just upstream from Larry's own palazzo is the Ca d'Oro, the House of Gold. Completed in 1440, the facade of this palace was originally covered in gold leaf. Although the gold has long since worn away, its unique blend of Gothic and Byzantine design makes it the ideal Venetian palazzo.
And here is, of course, the famous Rialto Bridge, which is one of the great sights of Venice. I'm not sure it's beautiful, but it's a great sight.
So, Larry, what news on the Rialto?
Well, nothing's new around the Rialto. Everything's old. Somebody said the view would be better if you took away that bridge, but I think that...
No, no, the history, that's what it's all about.
The Rialto Bridge spans the first bend in the canal. Until the 1930s, this was the only structure which connected the two sides. Originally constructed of wood, it collapsed and was rebuilt 3 times before, hello, it occurred to the designers to use stone. This span was designed by Antonio de Ponti, who won the construction contract in some sort of ancient publishers' clearinghouse sweepstakes. The merchant stalls that line both sides of the Rialto were a later addition. Left virtually untouched for centuries, the bridge was entirely restored in 1977. Today, it is used by Venetians to cross town and by tourists like me looking for the perfect tchotchke to commemorate their visit.
Calamaro, that rings a bell, doesn't it? Calamaro? I'm used to seeing it breaded, but that's it. This is lovely. It's the little clown couple. Isn't this beautiful? This beautiful Murano glass. Made in Czechoslovakia. These are nice. I used to make these for occupational therapy. I can buy that stuff in Times Square.
Now, if you want to shop where the Venetians themselves shop, go right next door to the Rialto Market.
Buon volete io, via Parona, nostrani e belli, via! Signora, biela per piacere?
The word Rialto evolved from Rivo Altas, or high bank, the highest portion of the lagoon. Of course, in America, Rialto means movie theater with sticky floors. This was the center of trade during the 16th century golden age of La Serenissima. Here, wholesalers, merchants, farmers, fishermen, goldsmiths, wood carvers, importers, exporters met and bartered over the riches of the Republic. Today, this is still the central market and the most congested part of the Grand Canal. How about that voice? Where's the talented Mr. Ripley when you need him? Watching the city move along the Canalazzo, you'll begin to notice private boats, not gondolas, being rowed gently down the stream. It looked fairly easy, so I thought I'd give it a shot. As a member of the Diodora Rowing Club, Lino Farena has taught dozens of non-natives the gentle art of Venetian rowing.
Ciao!
Buongiorno.
Buongiorno!
I've had two dreams in my life. One is to meet Ruth Buzzy. That'll never happen. But the other is to learn how to row. You can teach me?
Vieni, ok?
Oh, you took the words right out of my mouth.
Siediti qua fino che usciamo dal canale.
What?
Sedan, fino che usciamo dal canale.
Thank you.
Prego. Che voleva comprare Woody Allen.
Well, you're a chatterbox, aren't you?
Papà, vogliono sempre soldi questi lazzaroni.
I'll do whatever you say.
Sì.
Maybe I should learn to speak Italian before I learn to row.
La prossima volta parli italiano.
Stupido.
No.
Sì, sì.
Ma
Oh,
tutti fai sapemo, ti vedi? Tutti.
turn around.
Girite, sì. Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
Ah. Yeah,
Vieni.
yeah,
Vieni. Ora,
Right.
ora.
yeah. Let's face it, I'm a big sissy.
Vieni un po' più
What?
dentro.
I tell you what, we have to get a piece that
No.
comes around here. It'll keep it in place.
No,
It'll
no,
work
no,
so
no,
much
no.
better. It just won't stay in the formula. Huh? That's it, huh?
Ormai sei un campione.
I was thinking about moving here, but now I've changed my mind. Whew. I'm spent. What do you say? Lasagna for everybody.
Ah, sì.
Okay, so I'm about as useful in a rowboat as a screaming baby.
Grazie.
Prego,
Grazie.
prego.
Scusi,
Aspetta un
me
attimino.
lousiness.
But I can still appreciate the artistry of it. He did make it look so easy.
You're very kind. Thank you very much.
It made me appreciate just how much effort it takes to simply move around in the city. But not enough to try it again.
Ciao. Ciao.
Birdcage.
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 I'm Callista Flockhart. I finally put on a little weight. Huh? All right, you be good.
Ciao.
I have so much to do in so little time.
Ciao.
Mother Teresa.
The whole city celebrates the beauty of this sport in typical Venetian style, with a colorful pageant and race called the Regatta Storica. This annual boat race, which occurs on the first Sunday of September, dates back nearly 2 centuries. Look, there's Tony Randall in the front seat. The festivities begin with the corto, or procession of lavishly decorated boats. The origins of this floating parade can be traced back to the time when Venice was a world power. The pomp and pageantry was a symbol of the city's military and economic might, and a chance for Venetians to express their culture. One of the best places to view the Regatta Storica is from the balcony of Palazzo Giustiniani. Built in the 15th century, it has now been transformed into luxury apartments for the Brandolini family, although I hear it's an illegal sublet. Anyway, among the tenants is Marie Brandolini, who gave up the rat race, hustle and bustle of New York and Paris to join her Venetian husband in the joys of dwelling in this wet dream of a city.
I'm very, very lucky to live on the Grand Canal. It's really a privilege. And it gives you, especially from this terrace, a view which is just, you know, sometime at night, I mean, it's it's so beautiful, but it gives you so much peace.
Several years ago, Marie opened a glass studio, the Laguna Bee. Her delicate creations put a modern twist on an age-old tradition.
So it all started with a discovery that I made in an antique shop, like a thrift shop. And I found this old stock of Gotti glass, which were the glasses used to be made by the glassmaster at the end of the day with the leftovers of their day's production. And I found these, and it's like, I always wanted to work into glass also, so that it was the break, starting point. And I've met Davide through a friend of mine, and we started working together.
Niente, mega interessa moltissimo.
I was very interested in Marie's new ideas to use these colors, the different shapes and beads in the glass.
So I started finding my own way of making them and using all the traditional aspects of the glass, but turning it into something much more modern and more personal also.
Ma deve esserlo anche in via moderna.
It's necessary to develop a personal style, not just to copy some other master's designs. It's important to express yourself through making glass. Otherwise, like we say in Venice, it will put us to sleep.
Waking up the designs and creating a business has given Marie a stronger connection to the past of her adopted city.
Well, I think it has linked me to Venice much more because being one of the most traditional Venetian craft, people in Venice are very proud of their glass industry because it's one of the only industry now left. And so I think they were quite happy that I would do something with this medium and giving to the glass something even on a modest scale, but still something which I think can be appreciated.
So much art in Venice, and so much water. Oh, and sometimes all that water threatens the very existence of all that art, which is why the locals work so hard to protect their heritage and accounts for all the Tupperware. In 1966, high tides resulted in one of the worst floods in Venice's history. In just 3 days, the water level rose more than 6 feet, threatening to destroy irreplaceable works of art and architecture. The disaster alerted the world to the perils facing Venice. Millions of dollars flowed into the city.
The 1966 flood actually helped to create about 32 international committees for Venice. The whole world responded to the crisis.
International committees like Venetian Heritage and Save Venice raise millions of dollars to protect and preserve treasures large and small.
It's a city which had inspired poets and painters and music, and I mean, in many, many ways, people have received so much from this city that at a certain point, I think they really felt they wanted to give something back.
Campo San Vidal on the Grand Canal is headquarters for Save Venice. The organization has recently completed restoration on 2 churches, the church Santa Maria dei Miracoli and San Francisco della Vigna.
This is my last restoration, and this chapel was in very bad condition before because it was completely black, and the Save Venice adopted this project from the government because it was really last of the very, very beautiful chapel in Venice.
San Francisco de la Vigna, or San Francisco of the Wine, has stood since the 1400s. This huge church houses many smaller chapels donated by prominent Venetian families of the day. As a restoration expert, Toto Bergamo has never had to worry about his next job. In fact, he has one of the few good jobs in Venice that doesn't require explaining to people, that's 100,000 lira for the cheeseburger. 100,000 lira. Don't even contemplate fries, you can't afford it.
Superficie surface.
And who are all these it looks like they're all men. Are they all saints? Or it looks like the religious version of the Hollywood squares.
This is prophetic. And every prophet have the story they said like prophetia on the top.
What do you use to clean? Do you come in here with Q-tips and do nostrils and all that? Or?
We use chemical product, but very, very soft, very...
Right.
Toto shows me around the chapels and points out some incredibly precious artwork.
We have something better.
No need to stand in long museum lines here. Entire buildings are filled with the astonishing works of great Venetian masters like Tiepolo.
You have Tiepolo on the ceiling, the grisaille on the corner with the 4 evangelists. Right. It's something fantastic. No one knows it's Tiepolo, you know, because the people don't understand here they have some Tiepolo. But we have. You have the first here.
Toto is proud of the newly restored church. And one of the perks of his job, he gets to go places where even your average Venetian can't go.
I think we are very lucky to be here because normally it's closed, this part. It's only,
I feel very privileged.
it's only for the monks, and they work normally
This
here.
used to be all vineyard.
Yeah, yeah. And this is one of the...
Why it's known as the Church of the Wine?
Yes, yes.
It's why everyone looks so happy here. It has a special glow.
Yes, the wine is not fantastic, but...
But it's good enough for monks.
It's good enough. It's good enough. And also it's one of the last big gardens survived in Venice. And
Right.
it's really fantastic. I like very much this.
Well, thank you for allowing me in here.
Another restoration project sponsored by Save Venice is the Church of the Miracoli. Built in the late 1400s, this structure's beautiful marble was nearly lost to years of dirt, neglect, and lack of funds.
Well, welcome to Venice.
Whoa, it's great to be here. Tell me, now you're an expert on Venetian architecture. What makes this beautiful church particularly Venetian?
Well, particularly Venetian because they've taken all kinds of measures to add texture and color and detail to the facade that brightens it but reduces the sort of intellectual precision of it.
Right, and all these circles, and is that particularly Venetian? Or?
It's particularly Venetian because the Venetians, being great traders with the Middle East, brought back not only the objects of commerce, but they brought back columns, fragments of sculpture, all
Right.
kinds of objects.
Well, it's absolutely beautiful. Shall we go inside?
Yes. Here in the interior, one sees the simplicity of the architectural space, the simplicity in which the vaults, the walls, are completely orderly, simple, unadorned, but extremely rich in their material surfaces. Pietro Lombardo is the architect of the building, but he had 2 talented sons. And we're lucky that in the case of the Miracoli Church, it was Tullio Lombardo who was given the job of doing almost all of the interior sculpture. The interior sculpture includes the little figures of St. Clare and St. Francis, the very elegant Annunciation here on either side of the staircase entrance, and most particularly these enormous piers with their sculptural details here at the bottom. Now, it might look like just decor, but if you look carefully at all these figures on these piers, you discover that they're mostly sea creatures. They're sirens and nereids and tritons, and all things involved with water and with the ocean. And so it's a specifically Venetian range of subject that Tullio Lombardo employs for his apparent decor. And then rising from there, one looks up into the dome. This is the visual climax of the building. It's full of light, full of air, full of a sort of exultant sensation. Now, the course of the Save Venice restoration discovered all kinds of marvelous things about this interior. One of the most interesting being that the great vault directly above us is not stone at all, it's wood. The ceiling was completely uniform black or very dark brown. And it was discovered that when we began to clean a small portion of it, that it was completely gilded and painted. And now with the Save Venice restoration, we've been able to put it back almost the way it was in 1489 when it was consecrated after only 8 years of work. There are almost no other buildings in Venice that are unified in this precisely same way, partly because they took centuries to get built, and so tastes changed, and they changed the ideas as the building was going up. Not this one. This one is a little jewel box, which is perfect as the example of the major Renaissance artist of its time.
Yes.
Who is he?
It's
sorry,
Nathan.
I live here, but
It's
I
Woody
don't know.
Allen. It's Nathan Lane.
It's Woody. Who is he?
Thanks to the efforts of Save Venice and their supporters, this jewel box of a church will once again be the site of weddings, baptisms, exorcisms, epiphanies, and chance encounters with the colorful residents of the city.
I think Venice, to be appreciated and to be loved as it is now, needs to be alive, and needs to have people living and working and being a city, not a museum which is, in a sense, only to look at. It needs to be alive.
But if you are in the mood for a museum, just cross the Accademia, the third and final bridge that spans the Grand Canal, and on the other side is the Accademia Galleries. They are home to the works of many prominent Venetian masters, like Carpaccio, Bellini, and Canaletto. Their masterpieces chronicle not only the artistic development in Venice, but also Venetian life throughout the ages. My favorite museum was created by one of the kookiest, wealthiest, and savviest American expatriates of all time, Peggy Guggenheim. A messianic promoter and collector of abstract and surreal art, Guggenheim came to Venice in 1947 to exhibit her stable of artists. The opening marked the European debut for many modern masters, including Pollock, Gorky, and Motherwell. Guggenheim also purchased Cavalieri de Leone, an unassuming palace, if a palace can be unassuming, along the Grand Canal. This modest mansion houses her incredible art collection.
Phil Rylands?
How do you do?
Nathan Lane, nice to meet you. Nice to be here. You kind of run the whole operation.
Welcome to the Peggy Guggenheim collection. I do, yes.
Yes. Now, this was her house. She actually lived here.
For 30 years.
Uh-huh.
The house itself is interesting. It should be a palace, but it isn't really. It's got the ground floor, which is the dimensions of a palace. In the 18th century, when it was begun, they had litigation with the neighbors, I think, for the justifiable reason that the building next door started to fall down as a result of the mighty foundations placed here for what would have been a 5-story palace.
Right.
It has an oddly modern look about it, a sort of Bauhaus look about it. And as a matter of fact, with its wide canal frontage, with its big garden where Peggy's dogs could run about and do what they had to do, it was perfectly suited to Peggy. And so it does speak about modern art.
Just tell me one thing. Tell me about this.
This is a magnificent sculpture by Marino Marini. Peggy had the cast made for her in 1950 and placed the sculpture in this position as early as that time, which was quite a bold thing to do.
I'll say, I never knew horseback riding could be so exciting.
Peggy's house became the place in Venice to see modern art. So back in 1951, she opened the doors to her home and allowed the public to view these incredible works of art.
She writes comically in her memoirs about difficulties of house guests who forgot the public would hear rise late and appear in their pajamas amidst the crowd. Or she herself would be invaded during an afternoon nap by visitors who set out to see her bedhead by Alexander Calder, for example. So that an early kind of hospitality gradually converted itself into a more disciplined distinction between museum and home.
Years before her death in 1979, Peggy and her Uncle Solomon's Guggenheim Foundation decided that her collection, with more than 50 world-class masterpieces, should remain together in the home she created for her art of this century.
I killed one of those in my kitchen once. I don't even want to talk about it.
The fact that it's American and European international avant-garde 20th century art may seem anomalous in the city of Venice. As a matter of fact, this collection perhaps would lose something in another context if it was simply another great modernist collection in New York or in Los Angeles. It stands out by contrast with Titian and Veronese and Tintoretto and Bellini in the city. And these paintings are beginning more and more to take on the aura of old masters in any case. Let's admit that within a few years, they'll be the art of the previous century.
For hundreds of years, artists and writers have come to Venice for inspiration. And this end of the Grand Canal holds the historic hotels that have housed many of these inspiration seekers. Graham Greene and Ernest Hemingway called the Gritti Palace Hotel their Venetian home away from home. Originally called the Pisani Palace, it was built in the 15th century. Its facade of hand-painted frescoes has long been erased by time. The English author John Ruskin stayed here while writing The Stones of Venice, which was inspired by the night Mick Jagger totally trashed the joint. Today, you can rent the suite where Papa Hemingway rode across the river and through the trees. This is also the suite where the author's famous character, Colonel Cartwell, stayed. Another hotel of note is the Europa Regina, where painter Claude Monet stayed during his excursion to Venice. Today, it is home to the kitchen of Ivan Catenacci, where he prepares meals that are typically Venetian.
We are going to cook a typical Venetian dish, which is spaghetti vongole, or spaghetti with clam sauce. These little clams are a kind of seafood which are found in the Venetian lagoon. This is a dish which is very much appreciated by the Venetian and other Italians too. It is quite famous. This is the spaghetti. The Italians, of course, cannot live without pasta. I cook the clams with the lid on, so that the steam that forms inside will open the clams.
Not since the glass blowers have I felt such heat.
Venetian cooking is based about 80% on fish, but we also eat meat, especially in the winter.
Now we're going to put some nice dried white wine.
Get them drunk, they won't feel a thing.
It's important to cook the spaghetti al dente, because the final cooking has to take place in the saucepan so that the spaghetti picks up the flavor. Then, the final touch is a bit of extra virgin olive oil. Here in Italy, we're very proud of our oil. When I put the oil in the frying pan, I don't put it on the burner, otherwise the spaghetti will stick. Also, if the olive oil starts to boil, it would develop a taste that's too strong. It smells delicious. Whoever gets to eat this is pretty lucky.
For me? Grazie mille.
Maybe I couldn't understand what he was saying, but I speak fluent food, and the meal was delicioso.
and you can't have any.
Opposite the Europa Regina is the majestic Santa Maria della Salute. It was the first Baroque-style building to be erected along the Grand Canal. This beautiful church was designed by the renowned Venetian architect Longina. What a magnificent spot to take in the sights and sounds of the Grand Canal. Or sit inside among the treasures and soaring ceilings, soaking in the ornate beauty. The fact that this edifice was conceived in tragedy and built as an elegy to the dead makes the experience even more poignant. In 1630, the Black Plague swept through Venice, killing almost a third of the population. Survivors built the church as a tribute to the Madonna for delivering them from this devastating epidemic. So it makes sense that the church is called Santa Maria della Salute. Salute, it's what an Italian would say if I sneezed. Salute, health. It sounds better in Italian. While the bubonic plague is no longer a concern, thank God I had my shots, Venice faces another problem, one that threatens to destroy the very foundations of this historic city. The city of Venice is sinking right before our very eyes. You can see evidence of this in many buildings where the foundations are cracked and crumbling. Many assume the building damage is due to the high tides, or acqua alta, that plague Venice a few times a year. But when I ran into Giovanni Borgo, he gave me the real inside scoop on the real problem.
So Giovanni, everyone says Venice is sinking, but is that true? Is it because of the acqua alta?
No. The really and very problem in Venice is the waves from motorboats.
Giovanni explains that the propellers on the many boats using the canals create a strong current under the surface of the water. It is the constant churning that causes the erosion of the buildings. The Venetian government has tried to slow down the erosion by creating a strict speed limit of 4 kilometers per hour for all water traffic. This works about as well as telling New Yorkers not to jaywalk.
About 7 or 8 kilometers per hour.
Right.
And you see the water, the propeller push away.
Right.
So you can imagine 100 boats, 200 boats, 1,000 boats. And the waves construction is the problem for the life, the conservation of this town. Grazie al moto ondoso.
Giovanni knows that you can't abolish the gas engine, but he fears that the problem won't be addressed until a palazzo goes tumbling into the Grand Canal, or until my Ferragamo shoes are ruined. Then there'll be hell to pay. Near the end of the Grand Canal is the Piazza San Marco. Once divided by a canal, it was made into one plaza in the 12th century. It was here that great political and religious events were held. You know, coronations, beheadings, assassinations. Once the heart of the city, today the Piazza San Marco belongs to the tourist. And the pigeons. Not necessarily in that order.
They're like actors. They work for food.
Here, cafes that once took pride in hosting cultural, musical events now play that not-so-traditional Venice song, the Vienna Waltz. And the only real locals to be found are the waiter at the Café Florian.
5? Did I order 5 or 6?
And the woman who sells corn for the pigeons.
How's the corn business?
Lei parla, io non capisco.
Ah, no Italiano?
No, io no inglese.
No inglese?
No americano.
Oh, we're in big trouble.
Sì.
Yeah.
Piazza San Marco might be tourist central, but once a year it hosts Carnival. This celebration is held during Lent, when the winter fog lends mystery to a theatrical parade. It's like the Macy's Thanksgiving parade, only without the inflatables. In the old days, the wearing of masks and disguises allowed the social classes to mix and mingle. Maybe I'll come back in the winter and join the fun. What a great excuse to wear gold lame. On the west end of the plaza is the Corrido Museum. Its building was commissioned by Napoleon Bonaparte in the year 1797. The Campanile, or bell tower of San Marco, was built in the 8th century. It was used as a lookout for the harbor, but on July 14th, 1902, at 10 a.m., the tower collapsed. Incredibly, no one was injured. The centerpiece of the plaza is Basilica San Marco. This is the final resting place for St. Mark, whose bones were stolen from Alexandria and brought to Venice in 1828. St. Mark eventually became the patron saint of Venice, replacing the less glamorous St. Theodore, which proves that no one, even saints, are indispensable. Built when Venice was a gateway to the Orient, Basilica San Marco is Byzantine in every detail. The 4 horses overlooking the square, spoils of the 13th century war with Constantinople, became the symbol of a defiant Venice. Not happy with just one symbol of defiance, the Venetians also adopted the winged lion of St. Mark as the Republic symbol. These lions can be found throughout Venice. Artist John Cocteau once said of the square, "Where pigeons walk and lions fly." Of course, he'd been drinking heavily at the time. At the end of the Grand Canal is the Doge's Palace, or Palazzo Ducali. Although the Doge was the leader of the Republic of Venice, power was shared with the Senate and the Grand Council, so that no one faction could seize absolute power. Justice was delivered through the courts. When a person was convicted of a crime, they would cross the bridge to the prison next door.
When they passed the bridge over there.
Through there.
Yeah, they stopped over, they left them for 2 minutes to look on the sunshine.
Right.
And the water on the sea, this beautiful Adriatic Sea.
So they would see the sun for the last time.
Yeah.
So what do they call this bridge?
The bridge of sighs. Bridge.
The bridge of sighs.
The palace, which also served as a fortress, was designed to represent the power, strength, and splendor of all that was Venice. It is here at the palace that the Grand Canal opens into the lagoon and the world beyond.
Venice captures the imagination of the world because of its beauty, its antiquity, and it's this wonderful kaleidoscope of people and color, boats, sun on the water. It's glorious.
I'm very, very lucky to live on the Grand Canal, and I mean, it seems silly to say, but it's really a privilege.
Quando si entra in qualsiasi punto del Canal Grande, si entra in Canal Grande.
When you're on the Grand Canal, you feel like you're in another world. It's something that is both satisfying and exciting.
La mia mentalità ci si sente anche un po'.
And in my opinion, it makes you feel important too, because you become part of a landscape that is unique and doesn't exist anywhere else.
From one end to the other, the 2.5-mile Canalazzo is a river of life. A record of man's greatest achievements and his greatest ambitions. What a thrill I've had navigating this serpentine channel that marries nature and civilization. It's truly one of the world's great streets. And when I get back to New York, I'm going to recommend they flood Fifth Avenue. Hey, it works in Italy.
This program was made possible by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.